Imagine this, a queen so intelligent, so captivating, that two of the most powerful men in Roman history, the mighty Julius Caesar and the legendary Mark Antony, risked everything for her. Yet, her name has often been reduced to just the woman who seduced. But Cleopatra was far more than that. She wasn't just a queen. She was the last pharaoh of Egypt, a woman who outsmarted empires, spoke 9 languages, and refused to bow to Rome until her very last breath. This is not just the story of a queen. This is the story of how Cleopatra became immortal. The year was 69 BC in Alexandria, Egypt, a city that was a jewel of the ancient world. Cleopatra was born into the Ptolemaic dynasty, descendants of one of Alexander the Great's generals. The Ptolemies were Greek rulers in an Egyptian land, and power within their family was as dangerous as power outside of it. Cleopatra grew up surrounded by betrayal, backstabbing, and the constant fear that one misstep could mean death. In fact, members of her own family plotted against each other relentlessly. Siblings poisoned siblings, and brothers murdered sisters just to sit on the throne. From a young age, Cleopatra understood one thing: survival required intelligence, charm, and courage. And she had all 3 in abundance. At just 18 years old, Cleopatra became co-ruler of Egypt with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. But this wasn't a fairy tale coronation, it was a trap. The advisors around Ptolemy plotted to push Cleopatra aside. Rather than accept exile, Cleopatra fought back. She gathered armies, allies, and strategies. But the throne of Egypt was not just her fight anymore. It soon became entangled in the destiny of Rome. Because at this time, the Roman Republic was expanding, and Egypt, rich, fertile, and powerful, was too valuable to ignore. In 48 BC, Julius Caesar himself arrived in Alexandria, chasing his rival Pompey. Cleopatra saw her chance. She needed Rome's support to reclaim her throne from her brother. But how do you get an audience with the most powerful man in the world when your enemies are guarding every door? Cleopatra answered that with one of history's most legendary stunts. She had herself rolled up inside a carpet, or some accounts say a linen sack, and smuggled straight into Caesar's chambers. When the carpet was unrolled, out came Cleopatra, young, intelligent, and determined. Caesar was captivated, not just by her beauty, but by her wit and presence. She wasn't begging for mercy. She was presenting herself as an equal. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra regained her throne. Soon after, their partnership grew personal, and Cleopatra gave birth to a son, Caesarion, believed to be Caesar's child. At this moment, Cleopatra was not just surviving, she was thriving. She was queen again, and through her connection to Caesar, she had the protection of Rome. But fate had other plans. In 44 BC, Julius Caesar was assassinated in Rome. Stabbed 23 times by his own senators, his death sent shockwaves across the world. For Cleopatra, it was a disaster. Her most powerful ally was gone, and Rome was once again unstable. But Cleopatra was not the kind of woman to surrender. In the chaos of Rome's civil wars, 2 men rose to power: Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, and Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal general. Cleopatra saw her chance again. When Mark Antony summoned Cleopatra to explain her loyalty to Caesar, she didn't just sail to him. She staged an entrance so grand it would never be forgotten. She arrived on a golden barge, with purple sails billowing in the wind, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. Musicians played, perfumes filled the air, and Cleopatra dazzled Antony and his soldiers. It worked. Antony, a fierce warrior, was swept into her world. But this wasn't just a romance, it was a political alliance. Together, Cleopatra and Antony dreamed of a new empire, one that could rival Rome itself. They had 3 children, built armies, and openly defied Octavian's growing power in Rome. Cleopatra was no longer just queen of Egypt. She was positioning herself as a queen of the world. But Rome was not pleased. Octavian declared war, not just on Antony, but on Cleopatra herself. He painted her as a dangerous foreign queen who had bewitched a Roman general and threatened Rome's greatness. The final showdown came in 31 BC at the Battle of Actium. Cleopatra and Antony's forces clashed with Octavian's navy. But fate was cruel. Cleopatra's fleet was forced to retreat, and Antony's forces crumbled. Defeated, Antony and Cleopatra fled back to Egypt. Rome was closing in. In 30 BC, Octavian invaded Alexandria. Antony, hearing false news that Cleopatra was dead, fell on his own sword. Mortally wounded, he was brought to Cleopatra's side, where he died in her arms. Cleopatra was left with a choice: be paraded through Rome as a prisoner, humiliated, or end her life as a queen. She chose the latter. According to legend, Cleopatra arranged for a venomous asp, a snake, to be smuggled into her chambers. She held it to her breast, and with one final act of defiance, ended her life on her own terms. She was just 39 years old. With her death, the line of pharaohs ended. Egypt became a province of Rome. And yet, Cleopatra became immortal in history. Cleopatra has been remembered in countless ways, sometimes as a seductress, sometimes as a manipulator. But the truth is far greater. She was a polyglot who spoke to her people in their own language. She was a strategist who played empires against each other. She was a visionary who dreamed of Egypt free from Roman chains. And even in death, Cleopatra won. Because while Rome tried to erase her, she has remained one of the most iconic figures in history. She was not just the last pharaoh of Egypt. She was the queen who made the world remember her name for over 2,000 years. So what do you think? Was Cleopatra a cunning manipulator, or was she simply a woman fighting to protect her kingdom against impossible odds? If this story fascinated you, subscribe to Tales Carved, because here, every story from history is told like you've never heard it before. Thank you, and stay safe.